بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على إمام المتقين وقائد المجاهدين محمد بن عبد الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بهديه إلى يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. On the road verse today, as I mentioned before, I'm trying to take advantage of my time and the nature of my job, traveling a lot, and the month of Ramadan. So basically, I'm trying to hit two birds with one stone. As a matter of fact, so many birds with one stone, inshallah. Today's verse is from Surah Hud. When I heard the Sheikh reciting, and he was talking about the story of, or the portion, or the section of Shu'aib, when he was talking to his people, advising his people. It's like the advices of Shu'aib. It's a collection of advices of Shu'aib. I'm going to share with you only one advice among the six. He was telling his people, وَمَا أُرِيدُ أَنْ أُخَالِفَكُمْ إِلَى مَا أَنْهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ. I wish not in contradiction to you to do that which I forbid you. I wish not in contradiction to you to do that which I forbid you. In other words, I don't intend to differ with you on the thing that I'm advising you to do. So I'm doing the same exact thing that I'm giving advice and I'm following my own advice. To understand this verse, actually, this is a portion of the verse. Actually, the beginning of the verse is in Surah Hud when he said, قال يا قوم أرأيتم إن كنت على بينة من ربي ورزقني منه رزقا حسنا وما أريد أن أخالفكم إلى ما أنهاكم عنه. So the beginning of the verse is he's saying to his people, "O my people, tell me if I have clear evidence from my Lord and He has given me a good sustenance." Then he said, I wish not in contradiction to you to do that which I forbid you. So he's telling them the blessing and the ni'mah that Allah provided him with the sustenance first. Then he starts the collection of advices, which is 6, and this is the first one. What does that mean? I wish not in contradiction to you to do that which وَمَا أُرِيدُ أَنْ أُخَالِفَكُمْ إِلَى مَا أَنْهَاكُمْ. What does that mean? He's basically trying to tell them that my statement is matching my action. I am doing what I am saying. I am saying what I'm doing. Is preach what you say or say what you preach. This is very important quality of a believer, brothers and sisters. Because the opposite is a quality of munafiqeen. This is the opposite is a quality of hypocrisy. So a believer whose word or whose statement should match his action. It is so important concept in Islam for Muslims to understand this, brothers and sisters, because one of the most hated thing by Allah, is to say something that you are not following yourself. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned this, by the way, it's a verse in the Quran in Surah As-Saf. I think it's in Surah As-Saf, I'm not exactly sure, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I remember the verse, He's saying, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لِمَ تَقُولُونَ مَا لَا تَفْعَلُونَ. O you who believe, why you are saying what you're not doing? But listen to the scary part of the verse. كَبُرَ مَقْتًا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَن تَقُولُوا مَا لَا تَفْعَلُونَ. The most hated thing in the sight of Allah is to say what you're not doing. The word maqtan in the Quran, brothers and sisters, was not mentioned that much. So I think twice or 3 times. One of them was talking Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was talking about the usury and riba, and the other one in this, the other one here. The most hated thing in the sight of Allah is to say what you're doing, to say what you are not doing. So it's so important quality of the believer to understand this, brothers and sisters. You see people all the time talking and they are not even following their own advice. Let me tell you something. This is in the Hadith al-Ma'raj, one of the second longest hadith in Bukhari and Muslim. Second long, very long. But I'm going to mention a portion. That the Prophet ﷺ, when he was ascended to the heavens, 7 heavens, in one of the heavens he saw a man who was going in laps, dragging in hell, making laps, dragging his intestine behind him, and the people of hell gathering around him. This is in hadith, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that. And the people of hell is gathering around him as they say, what are you doing over here? Aren't you the man who used to tell us to do good and forbid us from doing evil? So he used to be a good man in this life, and they saw him in hell, so they were surprised, why you are here? Basically, you're not supposed to be here. So he said, yes, because I used to tell you to do good, but I was not following it, and I used to forbid you from doing evil, and I was doing evil. So this is his punishment in hellfire. He's going. Anyway, this is so important to understand the concept of matching your action with your deeds. الإمام حسن البصري. Let me conclude with this. الإمام حسن البصري, during his time, the people came and said, "Ya Imam, the people in Al-Kufa, which is Iraq now, the people has like so many abds, so many slaves. Why don't you give an advice to people to relieve, to set free some of their slaves, like 6 or 7 or 8, 10 maximum, but not like each one going in the street with like 50 of his slaves around him. It's like a whole army. What is that?" So the Imam said, "Yes, I'm gonna give them advice." So Imam Hassan al-Basri came, the first Jum'ah came, he stood on the minbar, but he didn't give any advice about setting free the slaves. The second Jum'ah, he didn't talk. The third, he completely, like for 6 months, he's not talking about that. So the people even who told him to give the advice, they completely forget about it. After 6 months, he stood on the minbar and he gave advice on the minbar to advise people to set free some of their slaves. So after Jum'ah, the people start setting free their slaves like crazy. So many slaves got set free on that day. So the people who talked to him 6 months ago, they remember. They say, "Wait a minute, didn't we tell you this, Ya Imam, 6 months ago? Why did you delay doing something khair, something good like that? You delayed so long. What took you so long doing that?" Listen what he said. That's a big lesson, especially to those who are in position of as a public speaker or giving khutbahs or giving advice. So he said, "When you told me about this advice, I didn't have any slave myself, and I didn't have enough money to buy a slave. So I waited and waited until I saved enough money to buy a slave. I bought a slave the other day and I set him free yesterday, and I stood in the minbar today to give the advice because I don't want to talk about something that I'm not doing." So brothers and sisters, this is something I wanted to share with you. It is so important to remember this. وَمَا أُرِيدُ أَنْ أُخَالِفَكُمْ إِلَى مَا أَنْهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ. I wish not in contradiction to you to do that which I forbid you. This is one of the advices of Shu'aib to his people, the people of Madian. جزاكم الله خير for listening, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among those who listen to the speech and follow the best of it. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.